Have you ever counted calories, maybe counted macros, maybe even counted points, and maybe you lost a few pounds or you lost quite a bit, but you either stopped losing the rest of it or you just gained it all back? And after a while, you felt pretty confident, pretty certain that it just didn't quite work for you. If that's you, you're not alone. I actually hear this so often. But what if the real problem actually wasn't counting calories or macros or points? What if they're actually amazing tools that work? And the biggest mistake actually wasn't that they don't work or using them. The biggest mistake was maybe believing that any one of those tools was a complete weight loss system by itself. Today, I want to show you exactly why so many people that counting calories, tracking macros or points or whatever method, that it doesn't work, that those methods don't work, when in reality, they only learned one small piece of the whole big picture when, again, they don't understand what actually creates permanent fat loss. Well, today I want to show you a little bit more of that picture of what it takes to actually create permanent fat loss and how to use these tools to help you to reach that in a way that the weight doesn't keep piling back on each and every year, maybe even sooner. Okay. So the very first thing I want to talk with you about is that you learned one tool, you did not learn the whole system. Now, the reason I wanted to do this video is because so often I'll hear people say something to the effect of like, oh, I noticed that you guys, you track your macros. Well, I've already counted macros and it just didn't work for me. Or I'll hear people say, look, I counted my calories for months and I lost weight, but I just couldn't keep it off. It just doesn't work for me. That's the whole big crux of the situation, is that so many people tried one method of one system and they thought that it was the whole system. What I mean by that is that tracking your nutrients, tracking your macros, tracking your calories isn't even the whole of nutrition, and nutrition isn't the whole of permanent fat loss. So when you did one piece of one piece and you thought that you did the whole system, what if that was really what kept you from getting the weight off entirely, is that you didn't use the full system? And today I want to show you exactly what that system looks like, how it comes together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. And the very first thing is that you learn one tool, you didn't learn the whole system. There is a huge misunderstanding almost everybody makes when it comes to weight loss. And I mean almost everybody. People think that counting calories, macros, and points are completely different ways of losing weight. They think that cutting carbs is a different way of losing weight. They think that keto is a different way of losing weight. And the reality is that it's not. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to get into exactly why. Okay. So some work for some people, but not for everybody, right? Well, the best news is that this actually isn't the case at all, that some of these work and some of them don't. They're all designed to accomplish the exact same thing: creating or maintaining a calorie deficit. All right. What you need to know is that calories are what ultimately determine whether you lose, whether you gain, or whether you maintain your body weight. Nothing else, nothing less. If you don't have your calories where they need to be, it doesn't matter what supplements, it doesn't matter how hard you're working. None of that will matter if you're not in a calorie deficit, which means you are burning or using more calories than you're consuming. Okay. That is the essence of all of this. So what you need to know is that calories, again, determine whether you lose, but macro tracking is simply another way of helping you manage calories while balancing your protein, your carbs, and your fats. But those macros still contain calories. It's not like you chose to count or track macros and you decided to forego calories. Not at all. By tracking or counting your macros, you're doing both. You're handling the calories and the macronutrient balance. I've heard it put this way before. I don't fully agree, but I do like the kind of the notion of this, is that calories will determine if you lose fat. Your macros determines, it'll determine if you lose weight. Your macros determine what kind of weight you lose. What I mean is that if you're just taking in low calories and your macros are all over the place, there's a good possibility you're underdoing the protein, you're overdoing carbs, and you're going to lose lean body mass, which slows down the metabolism, and you may lose lean body mass and water more than you lose actual body fat. Whereas, hang on, got a cat hair. I've always got a cat hair either on my face, in my clothes, or in my mouth. So anyway, with that said, when you track or count your macros, you are actually keeping track of your calories as well, but in a way that makes sure that you're not losing too much muscle. Anyway, I don't want to get us too far off the weeds here. I want to make sure that I'm continuing to make this point here, because when you get this will unlock everything for you, okay? So calories are what ultimately determine whether you lose, gain, or maintain your body weight. Macro tracking is just another way of helping you to manage those calories, but while also balancing protein, carbs, and fat so that your hormones are good. You're actually still maintaining muscle even while in a calorie deficit. Points are just another simplified way of helping people to manage calories too. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, what I will say is that I'm not a fan of points. I think that it's lacking a lot, but I don't want it to sound like tracking points, calories, or macros is somehow not effective and it doesn't work. It works very well. My problem with points is it doesn't really help you to be in the macro balance. So a lot of times people that are focusing on points will lose weight, but they're also losing water and they're losing muscle. Points is more similar to counting or tracking calories, whereas tracking your macros, I believe, based on my 2 decades of fitness coaching, is that it is going to be the superior way. But what I want to tell you is that these are different methods with the same objective, okay? They're all simply tools that help you manage your calorie intake, which is the foundation of your fat loss, okay? Now, some people might find one more preferential over another. As you just heard, I don't care for points. I don't think that it's sufficient enough, but it does work, okay? So ultimately, they do the same thing. So whether your preference is one way or another, it does the same thing. The mistake is not choosing to track your calories or macros or points. The mistake would actually be believing that one of these tools, learning one of them, means that you've learned the whole system of permanent fat loss, when in reality, this doesn't even cover the whole of nutrition, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, much less the many other factors that all affect whether you lose it for good or lose it and regain it all back later, okay? So what I want you to do is to kind of think of tracking or counting, which I really do hate that term of counting macros or counting points, because let me put it this way. Think about checking your bank account before you buy something. Checking your balance does not get you out of debt. It simply helps you to keep from overspending. That's all. That's all it's supposed to do, okay? Tracking calories, macros, or points really works the same exact way. It just creates awareness. It's going to help you avoid overeating in a consistent manner. That's going to keep you out of fat debt, if you will, okay? So this is going to help you to stay in a calorie deficit, but that's not all that fat loss is. So the same thing when it comes to your checking account. You can check your account, and that's going to prevent you from overspending or getting an overdraft, but it's not automatically going to help you to spend wiser. It's not going to help you to invest better. It's not going to help you to manage your money outside of overspending. That literally is all that tracking your food, tracking your macros, tracking your calories is. So the reason I don't care for counting calories or counting macros is because you're not counting your dollars before you spend it. You're tracking it to make sure you have enough before you spend. That's all tracking calories and tracking macros are. You're about to go to lunch. You want to make sure that you have the macros or calories available for you to eat without you overspending the calories you don't have. When you overspend in finance, you get into debt. When you overspend in nutrition, you get into body fat debt. Your body stores all of the energy that it could not expend, it couldn't use. So instead of storing it as debt, your body just stores body fat right on top of it. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. Does this make sense, guys? Let me know in the comments, hopefully. All right, so the next thing is that if you stop there, if you stop at just tracking macros, calories, points, whatever, you're missing the entire rest of the system. So point number one is that calories, macros, and points is not the whole system, and tracking it actually does work. It does keep you from overspending on the calories so that you can get out of body fat debt. The problem is that, again, it's not the whole system. And most people, they think it is. Oh, Lance, I've tried counting calories. I've tried counting macros. Didn't work for me. And I'm like, that if that's all you did like a 30th of what we do in my program. Each of these are just one tool for the nutrition part of getting healthy and fit. But if you stop there, you're expecting one tool to do the work of an entire system. And you're still missing the habits and skills that determine whether you lose the weight, whether you keep it off, or if you end up right back where you started. This is the main problem with 99% of weight loss methods out there. They teach a single nutrition or exercise strategy and let people believe that they've learned the whole system. So it's like, I've seen people go, again, not to pick on Beachbody, but it's like, I'm doing Beachbody and here's shakes and here's this thing, and that's all there is. And then they wonder why they blow it on the weekends. They wonder why their sleep is off, their stress patterns, and they still can't lose weight and keep it off. It's because you're not doing all of the things required to maintain your body weight or to lose it. And it's imperative that you learn these things. So this is the problem with 99% of weight loss methods. Again, they teach a single method or of nutrition and exercise, and they let you believe that you've learned the whole system. Nobody teaches them things like the 80-20 rule, the thermic effect of food known as TEF, protein optimization, glycemic index. That's another huge one for maintaining and creating better balance of insulin. Meal composition. Then after fat loss, nobody teaches reverse dieting. Nobody teaches maintenance. Nobody's going to teach how to increase your calories without regaining the weight. This is a big problem. So people get off of their diet or counting calories or macros and they go back to normal. And I realize I'm using quotes a lot because these are not real things. People go back to normal. And what normal is I stopped eating lower calories that helped me to lose fat. Now I'm going back to normal, which is the very thing that caused me to gain the fat to begin with. So you think that it didn't work and you think that you regained it because it didn't work, but you really regained it because you didn't have the full system. Hopefully this is making sense, guys. Counting calories, tracking macros, they all work. It's just one tiny tool for the whole system. It is not the complete thing. So tracking macros does work, but it's just not all there is to know. Tracking calories does work, just not all there is to know or to use, okay? So learning to increase your calories after your diet, after the weight loss phase, is one of the most important things that I can possibly recommend that you learn about. And the parts of life that usually get in the way of losing the rest of the weight or keeping off what you lost is the other part that actually keeps people stuck. Things like weekends, vacations, holidays, restaurants. Stress is a huge one. I have several clients that because of the last couple of years, their stress has been so high that they have they're in that fight or flight mode or adrenal dysfunction. And so their bodies are inflamed. They're not losing as quickly. And so we have to manage the stress and how the body regulates it in order to get them back into a mode where they're safely losing again. If you're only focusing on calories or macros and you think that's the whole system to losing, this is why it's not going to work. Okay. So stress, daily activity. This is a huge one. A lot of people even work out, but they're still sedentary. I don't have time to get into all that, but it's a big deal. Mobility is huge. Poor sleep, emotional eating, self-sabotage, and plateau adjustments. Guys, when you hit a plateau, and it will come, it's not a real plateau. You simply need to know what to adjust to get yourself back in a fat loss mode again, okay? So those are the key variables and skills that really determine whether your results last for 6 weeks or the rest of your life, okay? Now, Proverbs 24:3 through 4 says, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Now, again, that's the New American Standard version of that. But the thing of it is, I love that progression. Wisdom first, understanding, and then knowledge. You don't build lifelong health and keep the weight off by learning one nutrition strategy. It takes understanding the whole, or at least the majority of the system. And that is key here. Really, I'm hoping that this is making sense here. I know I can get off in the weeds a little bit, so I'm hoping that this makes enough sense so that you see that these things do work and they're not to be avoided. They're just to be paired with other things to get you the results that you want, okay? Now, this is why my clients don't just learn macros. Number one, I've already shared with you, it's incomplete. It does work, but not by itself, at least not permanently, okay? That's why my clients don't just learn how to track macros. They learn an entire system, a system that still works on busy weeks. They learn how to navigate real life, how to adjust when progress stalls, because that's a huge one. Your body is constantly adapting to the stimuli you give it. They learn how to increase calories without undoing months of work. This means that they get to go back to higher calories, so they're able to maintain the weight that they've lost without gaining it, and they feel comfortable, okay? They learn how to handle vacations, how to handle holidays, restaurants, busy seasons, again, stress, plateaus, reverse dieting, exercise programming, that's a huge one, strength maintenance. And because permanent fat loss isn't about mastering one nutrition or exercise tool, again, it's about learning the entire system so that you know what to do regardless of what life is going to throw at you. And guys, if you have kids, if you run a business, if you have people in your life, you're going to experience some form of stress. And that stress is either going to take you off of the path that gets you and keeps you healthy, or you're going to have the system and the tools to know how to manage said stress so that it doesn't take you off of your path, okay? Another video that I talk about related to stress is turning down the burner on your health and fitness goals instead of turning off the burner completely. So check that video out. That will help you immensely if you are in a season of high stress as well, okay? I don't want seasons of stress to be a reason that you can't keep healthy and fit. In fact, being healthy and fit in the season of stress is going to help you to manage that stress better. And I would even venture to say in a more biblical approach where we're walking by the Spirit and not walking by the flesh, okay? So this is what true stewardship is, though. This is why tracking macros or tracking calories is not complete. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just not the full system. You're missing too many other things if you've only done that. This is why even doing Shakeology and all these different things that are out there, they don't work long-term, because what it's doing is putting you into, or trying to put you in, a calorie deficit through nutrition alone. It's not teaching you how to actually live a life of, well, I would say sustainability, living a life where you're healthy and you're fit. Instead, it's teaching you the weight loss aspect. Well, what I want you to know is that there's a weight loss phase, there's a reverse dieting phase, which is the metabolism phase, then there's the maintenance phase. And maintenance phase is not just simply, okay, I'm here, I arrived, I just sit and I'm good. Maintenance phase actually does require some different thinking and some different behaviors in order to maintain that weight, okay? So with that said, because my goal is not simply helping someone to lose weight, my goal is to help them know exactly what to do after they lose it. That's how you keep it off, so that they don't spend the next 10 to 20 years starting over every January, okay? Like it says in Luke 16:10, again, kind of paraphrasing here, he who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. Again, that's the New American Standard. That's not going to be the standard that I'm normally going to recommend everybody studies, by the way, but this does say it really well. Stewardship isn't about doing one thing well while ignoring everything else, guys. It's learning to faithfully manage every area that God has entrusted you to. Nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, recovery, your thinking, okay, your habits. That is what stewardship looks like. So what I want to implore you to do is to consider that if you have kind of snubbed the calorie tracking or macro tracking in the past because you've tried it and it couldn't keep the weight off, I implore you to revisit it, to understand that without tracking your nutrition of some kind, whether you track your macros, whether you track your calories, again, I'm not pro points, but even that would be better than not tracking, because you are going to learn nutrition modification, where you learn what works and what doesn't, and it helps you to stick with something, so that much like your check register is your bank account, it's going to prevent you from overspending. And that is what stewardship is. You're not spending more than you have available to spend. Same thing with weight loss, aka fat loss, is if you're spending or eating more foods, you're basically stating, I'm going to do this exercise or this activity. And when you don't do that activity for the food, your body stores that body fat as debt, basically, and you have to go expend it. You have to move and exercise in order to get rid of that body fat debt. Okay, does this make sense? Hopefully so. All right, so if you've ever said, I've already tried calories, I've already tried macros, I've tried points, maybe the real question isn't, did those work? And maybe the real question is did you ever learn the rest of the system? That's the real key. If you'd like to learn the whole system, the whole Joyfully Fit 365 system, go ahead and check out the links below. I would love to help you to build a transformation that actually lasts, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps for the algorithm so that YouTube sends us out to more people just like you who are looking to actually lose weight, get in shape, and keep it off for life without living in extremes. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys all in the next one.